Step into the future bright and bold. With TaebiLab where stories unfold. Discover the magic research we unfold. TaebiLab, where science takes hold.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep, really deep into the sounds our bodies make. And I'm talking beyond just hearing your stomach growl.
We're diving into bioacoustics.
Exactly. But this isn't just about those familiar sounds. It's about the idea that our bodies are like, well, walking, talking soundboards of health information, sending out signals we might not even notice.
Signals that can tell us a lot about what's going on inside.
Exactly. And to help us decode these signals, we're looking at a 2022 paper from the journal Bioengineering, Body Acoustics for the Non-Invasive Diagnosis of Medical Conditions.
Catchy title, right?
Well, the research itself is even more interesting. So to kick things off, let's talk about a sound we're all familiar with, that steady thump-thump of the heartbeat. Expert speaker, what can those sounds tell us about our health?
Well, it's more than just the sound itself. It's also about the vibrations. Think about it like feeling the bass at a concert. Your chest vibrates from those sound waves. Our hearts make these tiny earthquakes too, and we can measure those with something called a seismocardiogram.
A what-iogram?
A seismocardiogram, or SEG for short.
So it's like a high-tech seismograph, but for your heart instead of the earth. That's wild. But what can these SEGs tell us that a regular EKG can't?
It's like the difference between looking at a map and watching a video. The EKG is the map, a snapshot in time, while the SCG is like a live feed of your heart's mechanical activity.
Okay, I'm getting the picture. So we're talking about picking up on those subtle irregularities that might signal something's off.
Exactly, like heart valve problems or even something called myocardial ischemia.
Myocardial? What now?
Myocardial ischemia. It's basically when there's reduced blood flow to the heart muscle, often due to a blockage in the arteries.
So a serious red flag.
A big one, and it's a major indicator of coronary artery disease, which usually requires some pretty invasive procedures to diagnose.
Got it. So using these heart vibrations could be a way to detect coronary artery disease earlier and less invasively.
That's the hope. And it's not just about early detection either. This kind of monitoring can also help manage existing conditions like heart failure or aortic stenosis. Think about it, tracking your heart health just from a simple sensor.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about the heart, but what about the lungs? How does bioacoustics play a role there?
Well, doctors have been listening to lungs with stethoscopes for ages, right? That's auscultation. But now we're talking about using super sensitive sensors that capture not just the breathing sounds, but the tiny vibrations that go through your chest with every inhale and exhale.
So like a super-powered stethoscope hooked up to a computer.
You got it. And with that kind of data, we're talking about diagnosing things like asthma, pneumonia, even chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
COPD, right? That's a serious one, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's one of the leading causes of death worldwide, and often it's not diagnosed until it's pretty advanced. But with bioacoustics, we can detect those subtle changes in lung sounds and vibrations way earlier.
Early detection is key. And speaking of which, the paper also mentions something called vibration response imaging, or VRI. What's that all about?
Now, VRI, that's where things get really interesting, especially for something like pneumonia. See, sometimes regular X-rays miss fluid buildup in the lungs, but VRI uses sound waves to create a two-dimensional image, basically allowing doctors to see inflammation or fluid that an X-ray might miss.
It's like shining a flashlight into your lungs, but using sound waves instead of light. Wild.
And we're just scratching the surface.
You know, thinking about all these sounds our bodies are making that we don't even notice, it's kind of wild, isn't it? Like we're a walking symphony no one can hear.
A symphony of sounds that can tell us a lot about our health, and not just from the heart and lungs. Let's talk about the gut, for example. Those rumbles and gurgles, they're more than just background noise.
Wait, seriously, my stomach is sending out health updates.
Absolutely. Think about it. There's a normal pattern of sound in a healthy gut,
Right.
And then there are deviations, changes in that pattern that can signal a problem.
Okay, so what kind of problems are we talking about?
One example is irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. It's incredibly common, and those symptoms, cramping, bloating, the works, well, by analyzing bowel sounds, doctors can actually tell what type of IBS someone might have.
You're kidding. You can tell all that just from listening to someone's stomach.
Not just listening, analyzing. For example, they can figure out if the symptoms are from issues with how the muscles in the gut are contracting, or if it's more about, well, this is fascinating, the gut-brain connection.
The what now? Gut-brain connection.
Yeah, so it turns out your gut and your brain, they talk. It's a two-way communication network. What's going on in your gut can actually impact your mental health and vice versa.
Wow, I had no idea. So are we saying bioacoustics could help us understand things like anxiety and depression then?
It's still early, research-wise, but the possibilities are amazing. What if, instead of, or maybe alongside traditional therapy, we could listen to the gut to help diagnose and treat mental health?
That's incredible. Okay, so we've done the heart, the lungs, the gut. What about the nervous system? Can bioacoustics help us there?
Absolutely. And one area that's really promising is in movement disorders, things like Parkinson's disease.
Parkinson's, that's the one that affects movement, right?
Right. It's a neurodegenerative disorder that affects a part of the brain called the substantia nigra, and that leads to tremors, difficulty with balance, you name it.
And how does bioacoustics play into that?
Well, remember those accelerometers we talked about?
No.
The ones that measure vibrations? Researchers are using those to track the tremors in Parkinson's with incredible precision.
So instead of just observing the tremors, they're actually measuring them.
Exactly. We're talking about measuring the frequency, the amplitude, even how long they last. This gives doctors a much clearer picture of how the disease is progressing and how well treatments are working.
Wow, so it's taking something subjective and turning it into hard data.
Precisely. And that's what's so amazing about bioacoustics. It's like we're finally able to see inside the body in a totally new way and understand how it all works in sickness and in health.
And it's not just about looking at individual organs either, right? The paper even talked about using these sounds to pinpoint where problems are in the body.
You're right, it's still being researched, but the idea is that by using multiple sensors on the body, we could triangulate the source of a sound, just like GPS uses satellites to find you on a map.
So you're saying one day we could use sound to locate a tumor?
It sounds crazy, but that's where this could be headed. The possibilities are pretty remarkable.
I have to say, expert speaker, learning about all this, it really makes you think about the future of medicine. Like, this could be huge, right?
It is huge. I mean, you were talking about a whole new way of thinking about diagnosis, treatment, the whole 9 yards.
It's like we're going from those old fuzzy photographs to high-definition video when it comes to seeing what's going on inside the body.
That's a great way to put it. And you know what's really exciting? This technology, it has the potential to make healthcare more accessible, more affordable for everyone. Imagine, instead of needing expensive tests and procedures, a simple sensor could tell you so much about your health.
Like giving everyone a superpower, the power to understand what their body is trying to tell them.
Exactly. Think about the public health implications. Imagine being able to screen entire populations for early signs of heart disease, lung disease, even neurological conditions, just by having people wear a device.
That could be revolutionary for preventing serious illness. But what about the challenges? What's standing in the way of all this becoming a reality?
Well, one of the biggest ones is noise. Our bodies are noisy, so trying to pick out those really specific sounds, the ones that indicate a problem, that could be tricky.
So it's like trying to have a conversation at a rock concert. Too much going on to hear anything clearly.
That's a good analogy. But researchers are working on ways to deal with that. Sophisticated algorithms, noise-canceling techniques. Think of it like noise-canceling headphones, but for medical diagnosis.
Makes sense. And what about the fact that everyone's body is different? How do we create technology that's going to work for everyone?
That's where artificial intelligence comes in. By training AI systems on huge amounts of data, we can teach them to recognize those individual patterns, the subtle variations that a human might miss.
So the more data we get, the smarter these systems become, the better they get at diagnosis.
Exactly. Think about it like language. The more you hear a language, the better you understand it. Same thing here.
This has been fascinating, expert speaker. It's amazing to think about the symphony our bodies create, even if we can't hear it ourselves.
I know, it's incredible. And we're only just beginning to understand what it all means.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about. And for our listeners, as we wrap up today, we want to leave you with a question. What if one day diagnosing health problems was as simple as listening to your body's unique sound signature? How would that change things? It's something to ponder. For now, keep exploring, keep learning, and as always, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
We dive into science with heart and mind.